I'm live on YouTube now. Okay, we got 2 minutes till we start. Thanks for your patience. I'm gonna wait until we're all here before I start. Okay, hello YouTubers, welcome. We're gonna start in a minute, although I just wanna make sure, hello, hello. I wanna make sure on Facebook that you guys can hear me okay. So just give me a comment, let me know.
You're calling in from.
Ah, okay.
And in the meantime.
All right, we got Dominican Republic, Colorado, North Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina. We got Texas, Sydney, Australia. What? 7 a.m. Oh, okay, that's not too crazy. Wonderful, though. All right, so remember that we're going to go ahead and start. Welcome, everybody. So glad you're here. And just because on YouTube, anyone can join. So I just want to say from the beginning here, this is a live Q&A for the Abstract Landscape Challenging that I'm currently doing this week. It's painting this painting right behind me, this landscape, and I take you through 4 lessons and show you how to create it. And in that, you learn how to create a really cool abstract landscape. So I'm going to jump into the questions that were, as you all know, we have a form where you can put your questions in, and I'm going to start with those just because that's easier. Great. First question is, how do you go from good to great in abstract painting? Oh, that's such a good question. Good to great in abstract painting. So here's what I would say. If you asked me that question, and it doesn't matter what age you are, I was going to say if you were like a middle school kid, but let's just say you're a middle or high school kid and you're asking me that, I would say, but even if you're 90 years old, what I would say, study color theory, study composition, study the elements and principles of art. You have to understand all of those to make any kind of good art, whether it be jewelry or sculpture or drawing or painting. You have to understand color, contrast, variety, symmetry. All these things matter. So I would say you need to study all these things, okay? Once that's done, I think that those lessons recede into our subconscious, and then we get to it and we work and we paint and we paint as much as possible. It took me about 8 years of painting abstractly to create paintings that I thought were on the level of great, okay? And I'm not trying to sound like braggy or something, but you know, and I judge that by the fact that I got into some galleries, I started selling work, I've gone into other galleries, other shows, you know, so on and so forth. So, you know, some people, right, felt that they were great. And what it took for me was, first of all, I started with representational painting, not that you have to do that, but I learned a lot of the rules about how to create drama, how to create depth, how to use shadows, all that stuff. And then when I got sick of painting images from pictures, I decided to start abstraction. And so I did it about 8 years. Now, it doesn't mean that you would have to do it for 8 years. When I was doing abstraction, I was also teaching full-time. And I was teaching English and art at that time. So if you have more time to paint, you're gonna cut that down, okay? I give yourself a few years. You might be lucky and be really good at abstraction like in year 1. But I honestly think having good instruction, a lot of time to practice, and an open mind really helps a lot, okay? So when you discuss your painting has several layers, when you go back and forth with your brush, are these layers? Or do you totally dry the painting and add another layer? Usually the layers are dried in between. So if you put a wet brush on top of a wet surface, right? If the painting is wet and you go on top, you're gonna blend those colors together. And so that's going to be wet on wet, it's gonna get blended, and those layers are not gonna be separate. That's one layer now. So I like to do, like day one, yesterday we did our background, our basic sky, right? Our basic ground. And then day two, today, we were dialing in our sky a bit more and we got some of that green in, right? So that was our next layer. You definitely wanna dry them. And what happens when we do that, we get a sense, as you can see in this, we get a sense of translucency, okay? Because it's clear that this layer, this dark blue, is under this one. I don't know if you can see that very well. And so we want these layers to be separate, because when you have a lot of layers, it creates mystery, depth, interest, intrigue. So yeah, definitely dry them. Okay, I'm working on day number 2, but the drips effect doesn't show any gradient value from light to dark or vice versa. Should I reapply paint and redo? You know, mine don't have, like, the drips themselves, they don't show gradations. Where they start to show gradation is where it got thinner, the water thinned out, and you can see the background more. So because it's light colors on a dark background, it's brighter here where the pigment is richer. And then as it goes down, it seems to me like more water is getting in here and we just have like a really faint wash. And so it gives the illusion that it's light to dark, but actually that was one color that got dripped. If you want to have different value changes in your drips, what you could try is do, let's say, your turquoise, and then let's bring our green in and let them mingle with each other, okay? Or the dark with the light, something like that. So you could mess with that, but I would redo it if you don't like it. If it looks okay, then I wouldn't worry about it. So it's really about how you feel about it, if you like how it looks. If you don't love it, it's not a big deal to do it again. The thing is, it's easy enough to just like do it, and then if it's not very nice, just get a wet rag and wipe it out immediately, okay? All right, let's see. Does painting on paper take more time to dry than a canvas in between layers? I gessoed the paper. Nope, it should take the exact same time. So, you know, it's really about the paint, the acrylic paint, and it should dry really fast, actually. And that's why we have the hair dryer. Now, if you're working on paper, you don't have to worry as much about high heat. You can do high heat and really stick it on there because your paper's not going to warp like a canvas might. So they should be very similar dry time. I'm not happy with the mountain because it doesn't blend with the foreground and sky. I want it to be loose. Yeah, so there was a person who posted on our Facebook group that she had a green mountain, and then there were some like blue little lakey looking things, and then another green part, and it was a bit choppy. We want to make it feel cohesive, okay? So we want this to feel unified, right? And so when I dripped this green here with some water in it, it went over the blue, right? And we gradually get to the blue over here, but it feels cohesive because the colors are very similar. There's a cohesiveness, right? So what I would do if I were you to pull it together is, you know, if you don't love how the mountain looks, you want it to be looser, actually I would get a palette knife and I'd go over it with the palette knife. And yeah, if it doesn't blend with the foreground, I would take that color and do a wash and brush over it. So it's like thick, dark green, let's say, and then you get a green brush, green wash, and then it goes to thinner. We want to go like thick to thin, light to dark, right? We want to sort of gradually blend stuff. I think I'll just keep this here so I can keep referring to it. Can I access lesson 1 again? I listened but didn't paint yesterday, so can start lesson 2. Yeah, a few people have been having issues with this, and this is very surprising to me because I've never had this issue. Some people are having this issue where once they watch lesson 1, they go to lesson 2, it's not letting them go back, and that's really odd. It's never been a problem before. So there's a few things I suggest if this happens to you. First of all, I have found out that some people are having more success with Safari, and I know Google Chrome works. The person who was having an issue was using Firefox, and when she switched to Safari, it worked just fine. If you're not seeing the video and you're just seeing the text, once again, that's probably a browser issue, or it's an issue, you might have a firewall on your computer. And if you have like a tech person who like messes with your computer, sometimes they put on firewalls and they don't allow videos to play and things like that. You know, I host my course on Thinkific. They're a huge platform. It's very safe. It's not like it's on my website, right? Which doesn't have like a full-time security team on it, right? Like Thinkific does. So there's nothing to be worried about. You don't need a firewall for my website. So you might just need to change your, your pop-up blocker or your firewall if you can't see the video. But I do recommend trying it in Google Chrome or Safari, okay? But other than that, Heidi, you should be able to go back to lesson 1. Anything that's been released, you should be able to go back to. And on the left, there's like a dashboard. So you see your video, and then you see the text under it. On the left side, there should be like all the different lessons. If you click on lesson 3, it's not gonna let you because I haven't released that yet. But you should be able to click on the supplies, lesson 1 and lesson 2. I'm feeling like my painting wants to develop into a seascape. I've only done day 1 so far, but I want to stick with your landscape for this course. However, any thoughts on seascape abstracts? Similar methodology, maybe a different choice of colors. Yeah, and I would do like this could have been a seascape if I didn't add the mountain in, right? If I kept it just a straight across line. And I would, I hear what you're saying about wanting to stick with this sort of abstract landscape. And at the same time, the way I work is if something's emerging, I kind of flow with that. It's like if that's where it's going, I go with it because I think I'll have the most success if I do that. So part of me wants to say, just go with the seascape and let it be a seascape. Because the only difference would be you're not going to make a mountain and you're not going to put some of these details, which are reminiscent of like maybe bushes. But this is kind of like, is it a mountain? This is a lake? What is it? What I like to do with my abstracts, they remind you of a certain place in nature, but it doesn't always totally make sense, right? And so it doesn't actually really make sense to have a mountain in this dripping area. So I would flow with what's happening and maybe on another canvas, do the lesson exactly as I'm doing it, but let this canvas, which is going towards seascape, let that go towards seascape. Is there a reason you do not use flat brushes? Well, I use a flat brush to do a lot of it actually. The big Purdy brush, that's flat, I mean, it's got an angle on it, right? But it's still like a flattish brush as opposed to my round Escoda brush. There's really no reason for this. Some of the round Escoda brush I think worked better because these are organic shapes, so I want that rounded brush. So like anything here. With this area, I just love that brush. I'm kind of like really stuck to it. It just blends well. I just love it. There's no specific reason besides that. I just tend to be a round brush kind of person. What transparent green did you use? Your company, Blix, isn't here. Can I make it? So I used Golden's green gold paint. So on lesson 1, below the video, I actually wrote down how to mix each of these colors if you can't get them. And the green gold it's basically a transparent green. So with a bit more yellow in it, right? And it's thinner. So it's basically green, yellow. You could do a bit of white and either acrylic glazing medium or water as a base or as a sort of thing to make it thinner so it's more see-through, okay? Let me get that down. Okay, how do you know if your water is too big and sky too small? So generally speaking, like my sky could have been smaller. It definitely could have been smaller here. I could have pushed up that horizon line even more. Some of you have a central composition. You have a horizon line in the middle, and a few of you, I said, hey, I would push that up a little bit. Because in landscapes, we generally want to go 2/3 up or like 1/3 up, right? So if your sky is more than, if it's half of the painting, it's too big, okay? If it's about 1/3, you're right on, okay? Okay. All right, let's see. You mentioned that you get the glow from building up your layers. If you add some white to the paint to tone down the vibrant magenta, does the white restrict the layers underneath from being vibrant? No, if the white is mixed in really well, and you're using either, again, like Golden or Liquitex's, their glazing medium or their gel medium to make it more translucent, or if you're using water, then you'll still see that color under it, okay? But titanium white is a very opaque color, so it does make things more opaque. So that's why you'll want to balance that with more water or glazing medium. I don't have the golden green color. What color should I mix? Okay, I just did that, so I think we're good for the mountain range horizon line. Okay, so I just answered that one about the green gold. Do you use separate brushes or wash the one brush between color changes? I see you are not using a very wide brush now on day 2 or not much anyway. Yeah, I usually have several brushes that I'm using, and I usually wash them in between. I have a lot of brushes, so sometimes if I've got like 3 or 4 colors going and a certain color goes with a certain brush, then I will like dip my brush in the water. It has paint on it, let's say, and I just lay it on the table so it's wet, the paint's not drying, but I can quickly go between the brushes. Because to me, every time you wash your brush, you're making your water dirtier, you're actually wasting paint because there's a lot of paint in that brush a lot of times, and it's slowing down the process. So I like to, again, wet my brush, have the paint on it, and then if I'm done with that brush, I'll dip it really quickly in the water, or better yet, I'll spritz it with water. I'll spritz the whole brush with water, lay it next to my palette, go to the next brush, so on and so forth. I like to dedicate certain brushes to certain colors sometimes. I also like to dedicate certain palette knives to certain colors so that I'm not messing up, because I use the tubs, so I'm not like getting blue in my white and so on. Okay, if using an old canvas, do you always gesso the canvas and start with a blank canvas, or do you sometimes leave the color from the underneath to be used as a layer? I will most times I leave that color, because to me, once you gesso, you're going back to ground zero. And if I don't like the color, I'll just do one color on top of that. The only thing gesso does, it just gives you that thick white coverage, right? But you can do that thick coverage with red or blue or purple, and then you're not starting from ground zero. So I always recommend to start just with the color, just go over with the color. Do you wash your between, okay, I already answered that one, okay. How often do you abstract from a, for example, photo, rather than just see where the process takes you? And if you do, is the original photo at all evident in your finished painting? Rarely. I do have a YouTube where I painted an abstract landscape from down in the, what we call the arroyo, the riverbed here in my neighborhood. And that was from an image, and I tried to stay close to it, but I changed the colors. And I also left out details. So that's one example. There's another time when I had an image I really loved that I wanted to paint, and I remember thinking, God, this is turning out terribly, and I got rid of the image and just gave up. I personally prefer to paint from just my memories, my subconscious memories of nature, and just go for it. It's what works for me. But honestly, it's hard. It's harder because it takes a lot of time, a lot of layers to figure out what I'm doing, and I end up sometimes wasting paint because I don't like what I did, I paint over it. I don't like what I did, I paint over it. I don't always do that, because I have now the more experience I have painting, the less I do that, but it still happens with abstraction. So having an image is good because it does give you some color reference, some form reference, and I think it just depends on the person and what works for them. There are times when I think I should just go back. Well, not that I ever did landscapes a lot, but I definitely painted from images a lot. But sometimes it feels like I just want to take a break from abstraction and just paint from a picture because it's easier. I can just do what's there and I can resolve it really quickly. So, it really depends on the person. How much difference does paint quality make? I'm using some really cheap acrylics and just curious to know how much difference I will find if I were to use better quality. I'll be honest, it makes a difference. It does. So, and here's the difference between good quality paint and cheaper quality. The difference is, and I have a YouTube on this as well, where I compare Golden versus Liquitex versus Nova Color. And